let's dive into the Rack source code. Rack is one of those things that if you don't know about it, you've probably used it. If you've built a Rails application underneath that, you're actually running on Rack. The first question is, what is Rack? You can think of it as this adapter that sits between all the different Ruby web servers that we have. And we have a list of these things right here. Falcon, Puma, those are the big ones, Thin, Unicorn, all these servers, they work in a different way. And of course, we have all these application servers like Rails, Sinatra. And how do those things talk to these servers? It does so through Rack, through this nice little interface. And this is actually a valid Rack application. So this does not run Rails, but what this says is, hey, the HTTP response code is 200. There's no headers on this thing, and we're just going to return hello world. All right, so now that you know what Rack is, let's have a look at the source code and see what is inside of it. First thing I like to do whenever I open a gem is I just open the name of the gem, so lib/rack, and this is pretty well organized. Off the bat, I see all these auto loads here, and I can immediately start to see these concepts that are familiar with me because I've worked in HTTP a lot. And actually, if you've worked in Rails, you've probably used send file if you're serving up a file on this thing. I like this. This is a really nice entry point, and it kind of tells me everything I need to know to go in here. Let's check out MIME types. MIME types is just whenever there's a response, it tells the browser, hey, here's the file type this thing is. So application octet string, this would just be like a binary blob. I think that's the default, or the fallback, I should say. And of course, you have all these different MIME types here. So you can see like a BMP, right? It's a bitmap image. I'm sure there's a ping some here. So you have image ping. So you can see this huge list of all these extensions and how they map to the MIME types that the browser reads and interprets. Okay, let's look at a rack response. So I've worked with those from inside of Rails, but I haven't really looked at the source code in a while. All right, so this is kind of like that array that we have here, right? There was a body, which was that array that said hello world, and we have our HTTP status and headers. So this looks like it's wrapping that array in a class, so you're not just working with an array. It deals with blocks, obviously, and headers. That looks like it is a way to kind of stream chunks out to Rack. Yeah, so here we have chunks. So you can write a chunk if you say response.write and then you throw some data in there. It's appending that to the buffer. You can close the connection, set headers. Yeah, all right, cool. So we have some mappings here between the HTTP status codes and some of these, I forget what they're called in Ruby, but the question mark methods. So you can check like, hey, is this forbidden? Is this not found? So that's actually pretty straightforward. Media type, we were just in there. Actually, we were in MIME type. So this looks like it is dealing with content type. And it's splitting this thing somehow. So I would need to refresh my, oh, okay, all right. So here's the text plane. It's saying the char set on this is UTF-8. So the media type is text plane, and I guess UTF-8 is the encoding. Cool. Let's go back out here and we'll see if there's any thing that seems, let's have a look at basic auth. So that is a fun one to look at. All right, so let's see what we got here. There's the challenge that's saying, hey, we're using basic authentication. Here's the realm that you're passing to it. Credentials, that looks like it's encoded in a string in a certain way and it's unpacking that. And then you get your username out of that and probably a password in the response. This looks like it's just a challenge though. So, oh no, here's the credentials. So the request, you get the credentials out of that and the username. All right, so the last one is the password on there. I'm actually not sure how that processes the response. Probably here, right? Auth provided, auth basic. I would imagine that just returns the username and password so you can authenticate. And then we have some more handlers here. Actually, let's see what this is in here. Oh, abstract handler. That's what I'm missing. All right. Unauthorized and bad request. All right, we have parts, scheme, all that fun stuff. Cool. All right, let's see if we can find a driver for this thing. I actually don't know if the drivers are packed in here because It did say that it works with these servers. I would imagine that each of those servers has its own, like, quote unquote, rack driver. Um, let's look at responses, I guess. That seems like it would be a fundamental part of this. Okay, so we have a length, a status, and a body. So, all right, this looks like it would wrap the response. Actually, the response is that thing that's the array. It's saying like 200 with headers and a body. You could do a redirect on it, so that would just immediately call a redirect on the response. You can finish. There is some block stuff I know that landed in Rack 3, and this looks like it's part of it. So if you've used versions of Rack prior to 3, you could just return a string in the response and everything would be fine. But turns out that doesn't really work well for some of this HTTP2 stuff where you have to stream HTTP responses. So there's that. I'm actually not sure how Rack plays with HTTP2 beyond that. It seems like an abstraction for HTTP1. Um, but I would want to dig into that a bit more. I have seen these constants in a lot of different places in Rails middleware, so that's interesting. I wonder if there's like a runner for this thing somewhere. Here's static. This looks like it's serving up a directory of things, and it takes gzip, overwrite file path. All right. Uh, so I do know that this is what a rack application looks like. So let's just for fun just follow this. Um, call n for getting the path info out of this thing. So that's saying like what file are we requesting? And this is the path from the browser, right? The URL. It's checking, hey, can I serve this actual file? I don't know what this does. It probably is some kind of security thing to make sure that clean path info. So what you don't want to have happen is somebody requests like a root password file and then this thing serves it up. So I'm guessing this checks to make sure that the paths are okay. And then it says, can I serve it? Can you overwrite the file path? That's interesting. I don't know. I'm not sure why. Okay. Then we have accepted coding. I'm just going to find the thing that actually serves it up. Okay. So we were looking at that MIME type stuff before, and this looks like it checks for the file extension name on the file it's trying to serve up. It gets the MIME type and it sets that for the content type. It sets up gzip encoding. And then we have the file server here. So we call the file server. That's interesting. Let's see what file server is. Go to definition. None of this works in, all right, rack files. Like I'm either using Z wrong or I just cannot figure out how to get go to definition working. All right, so we have rack files. Let's have a look at that. This is actually giving us a pretty good idea of how rack apps work and how a rack app can call another rack app, and it's just passing this thing called env. But it's going pretty deep, right? We have head. I'm not really sure what this head thing is doing here. It's a lambda. Maybe that can be called later, but anyway, we're calling that. Um, that's actually quite unexpected. So I'm not really sure where get is called. Let's take a look at this again. So file server root. All right, file server call. So that's somehow calling head. I would expect for file server to call get. So that I find that a bit confusing. I'm not really sure how I got inside of file server, and I'm not really sure why the call is the head. Where is this thing? All right. Because this looks like it's the thing that actually serves up the file. Otherwise, there's file not found. All right. I'm gonna keep rolling. I got like 1 minute left here. Rewindable input send file. I think send file just delegates sending off a file to a web server, so you don't have to have Ruby serve up that request. In other words, like if you're using this thing behind Nginx or some other server, this will be like, hey, Nginx, here's a file. It's on your server. Like I want you to serve that up so that I don't have to serve that up anymore. At least that's my understanding of it. Reloader reloads the entire like rack application. Let's see, statics, show exceptions. All right, this is, I think, another good example of a rack application. You see this everywhere and have 20 seconds. So if there's an error, you don't want to throw your whole stack trace up on a production web server. You want to handle that somehow. So this pretties it up. It, I guess, actually, no, this is showing your entire stack trace, so it's more for development. 3 more seconds. I got to go. Look at rack. It's used everywhere.